Yield farming and semen retention might seem like two unrelated topics, but once you dig deeper into their underlying principles, there are some surprising parallels, and that is going to be the topic of this video. So before I even get into it, I got to tell you guys how I came about shooting this video. It actually started off as a joke. So JT, who you guys see on the Know It Owls channel, follow his personal channel at JMansion as well. I was working on the outline for a video. And he was like, what video you shoot next? And I just tried to think of like the most outlandish thing that my brain could possibly think of. And I said something along the lines of how yield farming and semen retention have like crazy parallels. And then he just looked at me and I started to think about it. I was like, well, shit, actually they do. And then I started doing research and I was like, man, this actually could be a good video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what yield farming is. I'm going to talk about what semen retention is. And we're going to go through the 6 parallels on how yield farming and semen retention are related. Okay? So I don't even know if I should even say this is not financial advice, but it's not financial advice just in case. So let's hop straight into the video, starting off with what is yield farming and what is semen retention. So yield farming is like it sounds. It's a way to get a yield on your capital. So it's 4 main ways to get a yield in crypto. You can stake on the blockchain's staking contract. So like ETH 2.0, you can stake your ETH to get, a 13% APY or whatever it is. You can stake your funds on borrowing and lending platforms such as Aave and Compound or Radiant, like we talk about in this channel. And they pay you a yield because they loan out your funds. The third way is staking your funds on insurance platforms such as Nexus Mutual, and you get paid passive income to facilitate insurance premiums or let the platform facilitate it because you're not actually doing it. And then the fourth way is staking your funds on decentralized exchanges, which is the most profitable way, the way we talk about all the time. You stake your funds in the form of pairs. So for example, ETH USDC, and then you get paid passive income anytime someone swaps from ETH to USDC in your pool or USDC back to ETH. Okay, so now that we know what yield farming is, what is semen retention? Put bluntly, it is retaining your semen and not ejaculating. And I'm specifically talking to men because it's a little different for women, but it's been one of the most powerful things I've done in my life. Right? Like we have the whole XXX industry, and I say it because, I don't want to get canceled. And in it, we always see the guy finishing by ejaculating. And I feel like that primed us to believe that we're supposed to do that every time when I think we're only supposed to ejaculate once we're about to have a kid, right? And, basically it's a really good book called The Multi-Orgasmic Man that every man should read. Way of the Superior Man is good, but they kind of just scratch the surface. On semen retention. Mantak Chia is the author, and he has an Instagram account, and he's always talking about it. But just give you guys a couple fun facts. Once you ejaculate, it's your body basically saying, oh, he's about to create a new life. Let's give it our best enzymes and nutrients and proteins. So you're literally just wasting it every time. And if you retain your semen, it goes into making your hair thicker, your voice deeper, your muscles more dense. Basically just makes you more attractive to the opposite sex. It vitalizes your organs. It improves cognitive function. It does a lot of different things, right? When you bust a nut, it's like you're just eliminating the nutrients from 3 healthy full course meals that you ate. And this is why after intercourse, a man feels depleted after. I don't care how bad the girl is. You want a little bit of space, after that. And there's actually ways to have what's called a non-ejaculatory orgasm, where instead of having a explosion, you have an implosion where the orgasm goes up your spine and you have an orgasm in your brain. It allows you to connect more and you don't have that post I need space phase, right? And if you guys never tried it, try it. Like go a few months. It's gonna be hard, no pun intended. But when I first started doing it, I got stronger in all of my lifts, and it wasn't placebo. I'm doing more bench pressing, I'm doing more on pull-ups, I'm squatting more, I'm deadlifting more. And I'm just like, wow. And I remember the first time I broke it after going a long time, immediately noticed a difference, immediately, right? So how the hell is yield farming and semen retention related? Let's go through the first point. So the first principle is delayed gratification, right? So with yield farming, it requires patience, as you often need to lock up your assets for a period of time to earn the rewards, or not lock them up, but keep them there for an extended period of time. The longer you stay invested, the greater your potential return. So you do, like, people who hop into yield farming who have the mindset of, oh, I want to get rich quick, it never really pans out well for them. It's a long-term game, and that's why we always say time in the market versus trying to time the market, right? To give a visual of what I'm saying here, this chart shows the value of $10,000 if you invested in the S&P between January 2003 and December 2022. If you look here, if you invested all days, your 10K would be worth $64,844. If you missed the 10 best days, you pretty much cut your returns in half. Your 10K would be worth $29,708. If you missed the best 20 days, $17,000 and some change. You missed the best 30 days, you only made $1,700. And then as you miss the best 40 days or more, you actually start to lose money. Now, it's the same exact thing with yield farming, right? There's no chart online. If someone's watching it and wants to make one for an ETHUSDC pool or something, by all means. But the thing about yield farming is you get paid off of volume, buying and or selling volume. So you never know, like a pool that you're in, one of those assets can do like a partnership and announce it, and you can make like 5-10% in one day or a few hours, right? But if you weren't in range and you weren't in that pool, you missed out. And if you missed the top days of that liquidity pool is trading, you will go from crazy returns to probably impermanent loss if you miss the best days, right? Time in the market versus trying to time the market. Now, delayed gratification also goes into semen retention, right? You're gonna want to rub one out because especially if you're used to it. Like, how our brain works is whether something is a good or a bad habit, we become neurologically used to it and our brain starts to crave it because it's familiar. So whether that's doing bad drugs or working out, if you do it on a set schedule, your body's like, hey, this is a time where you normally, we probably want to, do that. And when you go to break a habit, you literally have to fight your brain and you want to replace that habit with a new one. So delayed gratification comes in because you're basically sacrificing, feeling good in one moment for increased cognitive function, strength, vitality, all the benefits that we talked about. And it takes a while for those benefits to start to show. Okay. The second principle is energy conservation. Okay. So with yield farming, by not constantly moving your assets or cashing out too early, you conserve your financial energy, right? Or your intellectual capital, I should say. And you allow it to compound over time, potentially leading to higher returns. Okay, so a lot of people, they hop into yield farming and they want to only provide liquidity in these extremely tight ranges and they're, expending so much energy. But when you look at the numbers, they didn't even outperform someone just holding that asset on its own. If you're not outperforming a hodler, then it's no point of doing it, right? So you want to set it up in a way to where it's efficient. The definition of efficiency is minimal input for a maximum output, okay? And if you want to learn how to set up your pools that way, you want to go through the best yield farming course in the world with some of the best coaches who do this full time with a top-notch community. Click the link in the description, book a free strategy session. You'll talk to me or one of our coaches. We'll answer any questions you have as it relates to crypto, yield farming, investing, or anything under the sun in that regard. And we'll see if our program is a good fit for you. I digress. So energy conservation, semen retention, same thing. The idea is that by not frequently expending your sexual energy, you can harness that energy to other areas of your life. Like I said, improving your productivity, creativity, mental clarity. Because if you have frequent sexual activity, it can sometimes lead to physical and mental fatigue, which reduces your overall vitality. If you look at the concept of energy is all that ever has been, all that ever will be. It can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transmuted, right? And it's the same thing with your sexual energy. You're not gonna be able to get rid of your urge to express yourself sexually is what it boils down to, because it's our strongest urge, because if it wasn't, we would die off as a species. Like, sex is the instrument nature uses to perpetuate life. So it is a healthy urge to be horny and want to procreate. But that doesn't mean you do it every time. Just like every time you're hungry doesn't mean you should eat, right? It's a lot that goes into that. So once you feel those feelings, it's an energy you feel, and you can literally transmute it towards something productive, whether if it's working out, whether if it's working on a project on your computer, meditating, like anything, right? Move on to the next point. Number 3, compounding benefits. So in yield farming, the rewards that you earn can be reinvested to earn even more rewards, which leads to compounding effect over time. Like we all heard the question, or if you haven't, would you rather have a penny doubled every day for 30 days or $1 million? You know, our brain isn't designed to quantify exponential growth. Or most people would take the $1 million, but if we look at this, you can see that after 30 days is 5.3 million. So you just lost out on 4 mil. But at first, it doesn't seem like much. Like 1 cent doubles to 2 cents, then 4 cents, 8 cents, 16 cents. Day 15, you're at $163. Day 20, you're only at 5K. But then day 24, you're at 83K, then 167K. Then you get to $1 million on day 28, and then 5.3 million on day 30. So it's like small actions usually tend to show little impact until a critical threshold is reached. What I mean by that is, like, if you take some ice, for example, like freezing temperature is 32 degrees. If you have ice at 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, like it's still going to be frozen. But as soon as it gets over 32 degrees, 33 degrees, it's going to start to thaw, and then you can actually see it. It's the same thing with how cancer spreads. Like at first, it's just these little cells, nothing to be worried about, but out of nowhere, or seemingly out of nowhere, things get crazy. It's the same thing with overnight successes. People work and grind, and you know, they say luck is when opportunity makes great preparation. One day they get opportunity after preparing for something for so long, then they're able to execute, and it seems like it was an overnight success. Now, when it comes to compounding benefits with semen retention, like we said, you have to wait a while for the vitality and the increased strength and all these things to come about. And the younger you are, the faster you'll start to see this, because that's also where most of our testosterone comes from, right? And testosterone is what damn near makes a man a man. So the younger you are, the faster your body is able to create testosterone as a general rule. Like if you're an older person who's healthy, is eating the right things, getting sunlight, working out, you can still, you know, have your testosterone replenished pretty quickly. But as a general rule, the younger you are, the faster, okay? But in terms of compounding, the longer you do this, the more it compounds, right? Imagine you have more strength to work out and you're still working out consistently. You're actually going to get stronger than you were if you were working out consistently without doing semen retention. So the effect starts to compound on each other from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and most importantly, from a spiritual standpoint. Now, let's go to principle number 4, which is discipline and self-control. So with yield farming, a successful yield farmer requires discipline to avoid panic selling during market volatility and stick to a long-term strategy. So you have this thing called impermanent loss, where yield farming is almost like, or not almost like, is literally like a limit order for the underperforming asset. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're providing liquidity for Ethereum and USDC from 2,000 at the bottom to 3,000 at the top. If you go out of range to the top, you're going to be in the underperformer, which is USDC. If you go under 2K, you're going to be in 100% ETH, right? And this is part of the reason why we tell people, don't provide liquidity for any assets you wouldn't mind holding on their own, because if it goes to 0, you're going to be in 100% of the shitcoin, right? So you have to have discipline and self-control to not look at a shitcoin pair and just because the yields are extremely high, you hop in. You want to have discipline and patience and go, hey, this is a pair where I don't mind holding either of these assets on their own. And I know there's going to come a day where people come in and buy it by the troves, timing the market versus trying to time the market. I'm going to be in on that day. I'm going to benefit greatly. The yields might not be extremely crazy now, but if you're providing liquidity for an asset or assets that you think will get bought up from your research, that self-control will pay you huge dividends, but you do have to be disciplined and wait for it. And with semen retention, similarly, you know, it requires a high degree of self-control and discipline because it goes against the natural impulse for immediate gratification. Like I said, especially if you're used to it, it takes a lot of willpower to suppress or transmute the strongest urge that we have as human beings. Like it really is hard, no pun intended again. All right, number 5, control release and timing for maximum impact. Okay, so what I mean by that, in yield farming, deciding when to claim or compound your reward is really, really crucial, and it has a big effect on your performance. So the key is to hold off on cashing out too early to maximize your yield and let your assets grow waiting for the optimal time when rewards are at their peak. So I'll give you guys an example. So I always talk about my Maple ETH pool, and you can see right now it's out of range, okay? Now, that's not the important thing. The principle is control release and timing for maximum input. So remember I said it's a limit order for the underperforming asset. So if this chart's going up, Maple's outperforming ETH. If it's going down, ETH is outperforming Maple. So by me being out of range here, I'm in 100% ETH in this pool, okay? So when I went out of range here, I was in 100% Maple. So what did I do? I took my ETH rewards and I exchanged them for Maple because I knew Maple would eventually bounce back, right? I did that here, and up here I did the opposite. Versus getting scared and just be like, oh, I'm about to go out of range, I'm gonna miss out on yield. If you look on Revert, it shows that I've been in this position for 208 days. That means I've gotten paid passive income for that many days without having to do anything, as long as it was in range. It went out of range here, it went out of range here, and it's out of range right now. So when it got out of range to the downside, that's when I would take all my rewards and exchange it for the asset that was undervalued, and then it rolled back on up. Right? So I took my ETH rewards, bought Maple, and now Maple, has been mooning. And now it makes a big difference in my returns. Like versus just keep sitting on my rewards, you take your rewards and you buy something that you're bullish on. When the price of that goes up and then you rebalance your portfolio, it increases your rewards like drastically, especially on an annual basis. Now, when it comes to semen retention, it's similar. The control release allows for better long-term results rather than instant short-term satisfaction. Like I said, imagine only, ejaculating when you're ready to have a kid. And if you have more nutrients, like it's going to make your semen more efficient, healthy, I should say. If you have a healthier semen, that means you're going to have a healthier child. And if you have a healthier child, that means its offspring is going to be healthier. So it's literally, it's compounding from a generational standpoint, right? Like really just let that sink in. All right, let's go to the sixth and final point, and that is mindful allocation, right? So with yield farming, knowing when and where to allocate your assets is key to maximizing returns, and this requires a mindful approach. And this is why we have our Yield Hunter tool. It's so many liquidity pools out there on so many different blockchains, on so many different decentralized exchanges, with so many different APRs, different token pairs. So you really have to know where to put your liquidity, right? Should you be in a volatile pair, like two altcoins? Should you be in two stable coins? Should you be in an altcoin and a stable coin? What's the correlation of these assets? How long should you be in? You know what I mean? What should your range be? It's a lot of different factors at play that we teach you how to conceptualize so you can provide liquidity intelligently. And similarly with semen retention, it's the same thing. So just like being mindful about, all these things about where you should put your liquidity pools, you need to be mindful about where you're going to expend or transmute your sexual energy to help ensure that it's used in ways that aligns with your broader life goals. What do I mean by that? Well, that means deciding on if I want to use this energy to work out or waste time scrolling on Instagram, waste it just thinking about sex, like just sitting there fantasizing. That's something that can happen too. When you're really horny, you're going to be thinking about previous sexual experiences or sexual experiences that you want to have. Like you really have to grab a hold of that energy and transmute it to something that's productive. Working out, reading a book, getting some work done, spending time with family versus just wasting it. Okay? So I hope this video was helpful. All my good brothers out there, all my men, if you haven't looked into semen retention, it is the real deal, Holyfield. Definitely recommend you look into it. Read those books that I recommended. And if you have any questions on it, ask me in the comments. But with that, I thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you got value, I ask that you drop a like, drop a comment, share with a friend. Share it with one of them friends that busting them out of them nuts, help them out. Anyway, love all y'all who tuned in, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Take care and trade safe.